Welcome to the Sens Spotlight podcast brought to you by the Sick Podcast Network. Before we get started, bet the beauties with Betway and scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account and download the app. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Betway is an official sponsor of your Ottawa Senators. Also for our YouTube fans and everyone around, please like and subscribe to all of our shows on all the platforms, specifically YouTube, and really helps us grow the show. We're giving out tickets to the Boston Bruins game tomorrow, so keep your eyes and ears open for that. So before we get started, we're back with Pierre McGuire to discuss last night's pretty up and down game against the Dallas Stars. So it should be a fun one. Hit it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Sens Spotlight.
Here's Alfredson, bursts the speed, gets a shot, and we score! Daniel Alfredson ends the game in overtime and sends the Ottawa Senators to the Stanley Cup Final for the first time in franchise history.
The sickest Ottawa Senators podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And we are joined by Pierre McGuire. Long time no see. Just what were your thoughts on the game last night?
I had a bunch of games going, but I enjoyed watching the Ottawa game. I thought the Ottawa game for the first 40 minutes was actually really good for Ottawa. Looked like they were structured, they were layered, they were playing with energy, with passion. Guys were stepping up. It was great to see Drake score a goal. Obviously, huge to see Nick Jensen score a goal. So there was some really good stuff in that game. And I was concerned, and I didn't want to put the Sports Illustrated jinx on them, but when Chabot went down, and I know it was a hit into the boards, but I still don't know like what could have been that serious because it didn't look. No. Colin Blackwell's not a big guy, number one. I know him really well. I played in Boston, played at Harvard. I've known him for a long time as a player. He's a hard-nosed kid, but he's not a big, physical, overwhelming guy. I didn't think that was that hard a hit, but then to see Thomas not come back, I was like, uh-oh, this is not good. And so my thought process was as the game went along, Ottawa was going to have to extend that 2-0 lead because if they didn't, the minutes were going to start to add up, the mistakes were going to start to happen, and then Ottawa was going to be in trouble. And if you look at the third period in particular, that's exactly what happened.
It really felt like that Tyler Clevin play that led to the Wilson goal, like, just changed the complete dynamic of the game. Ottawa was playing actually pretty well for the most part in that second period. And as Travis Green said, I thought our first 37 minutes was pretty good, and I think that really changed the outcome. You're down a goal, and Dallas just kind of came out in waves and waves. But credit to the Senators, too, like down Chabot, one of their most impactful defensemen. And at the same time, in that third period, sure, they gave up the goal on a couple of questionable calls throughout the game. But at the same time, they found a way to get a point and go to overtime. Sure, they could have scored, to me at the post there. But I still felt pretty good. I come out of the game, I don't know if you feel the same way, Pierre, but pretty good about where the team's at. Obviously, if Chabot's out for an extended period of time, that's a big loss. But just the way they're playing pretty good hockey where it felt like last week we're like, what's up with this team? Sure, they're going to overtime, but they're not playing good, inspired hockey.
I like the fact they're stockpiling points in the standings. In their last 6 games, they've got 3 wins. They got 3 overtime or shootout losses. You keep putting points in the bank. That's all you want to do at this time of the year. Just keep steady, keep moving along, soldiering on, as an old coach used to tell me all the time. The fact that they have a division game on Thursday against Boston is huge. I'm glad you're giving out tickets. LA Kings will be the middle part of a long road trip. They've started the trip really well, winning in Pittsburgh, winning in Toronto. Winning in Montreal. So eventually ending up in Toronto and Ottawa. But no, I think that it's really good before the Ottawa goes on this long trip. Just keep stockpiling points. Your point about Chabot is spot on. I don't know what they do long term with that. Yeah. That's going to be one of the big question marks for them. I am very excited, though, and I hope you are too, that they were listening on Jordan Spence.
I know.
They were listening. They got him in, and he's playing well. And they actually took him away from Clevin and moved him up, obviously, playing with Chabot a little bit, so that was good. And he's not exactly playing with the guy we want him to play with, Sanderson, but it's okay. I get it. Yeah. At least it's a step forward. It's good.
He might be. The one thing that, like, moving forward, if Chabot's out, I was thinking about this and I wrote about it at Sportsnet today, was like, they have so many right shot defensemen, and they have no left shot. They have Scott Harrington, who played in the league but hasn't played in a couple of years. He's in his 30s, and they have Jordan Donovan, who I think actually could be a pro one day. He's played pretty well, but he's not. I don't know. So the good news is they have 6 defensemen that are NHL caliber. But how would you approach that if you're Green moving forward? If Chabot's out, just putting 2 right shots with each other, you just have to
for now you might have to, but if it's a long-term situation with Thomas, I think you got to look to outside the organization for some help. And there'll be teams that'll be willing to accommodate. It's not going to be a player that's going to replace Thomas, but it's going to be a player that can help you. We've seen history of these kinds of trades before where I'll use Will Borgen as an example. I know he plays on the other side, but he's part of the Capo Kapanen deal, and he comes back and he's become a good player for the New York Rangers. So it's not always those big name players you got to go out and get. It's sometimes this is where your pro scouts really matter. It's like Alex Carrier. I'll go back to it. I remember sitting in the meeting rooms in Ottawa and saying, we got to get this guy. And, to be fair, our pro scouts at that time didn't have a great book on him. They just didn't. And so that's why there was some, I think, hesitancy internally to go out and get him. And so if you look at the deal that Montreal makes, a year and a half later, they trade Justin Barron to Nashville for Alex Carrier, 1-for-1. It's a great deal for, I think, Montreal, but it gives potential to Nashville down the road because Barron's younger. But if you look at what Carrier's done for Montreal, it's been pretty substantial. So you got to have a good book on players. You got to make sure you understand the guys that are trending upwards, the guys that are trending downwards. You don't want the guys that are trending downwards. And in order to do that, you got to watch a lot. And not every team's pro scouting mentality is the same. I'm just telling you. Some are like go in, get a look, leave, and then scout off tape. Others are like, we're going to spend 5 days watching this guy, and we're going to get a book on him for 5 days. And then it's going to add into our other information that we have. And I'll give you one case in point. It's a good story, and I'll be fast. Craig Patrick, when he was running Pittsburgh, and Bob Johnson, Scotty called me up, and they said, hey, there's a really good schedule in Hartford. The Hartford Whalers play 3 times in 7 days at home, and their farm team plays 2 times in Springfield. So you're in 5 days or 7 days, depending on how you want to look at it, you're going to be able to see 5 games. And you'll never have to leave Hartford because, Springfield was their farm team, which is about a 35-minute drive from Hartford. So I moved to the hotel in downtown Hartford, and I was given specific orders. Watch Ron Francis and Ulf Samuelsson. They never brought up Grant Jennings' name. And they said, if you see anybody in the American League you like, bring their name up too. And so I went and I compiled all kinds of intel on Francis and Samuelsson and newspaper clippings and everything else and made the presentation. And it wasn't long after that Hartford traded Ron Francis, Ulf Samuelsson, and Grant Jennings to Pittsburgh for the late Zarley Zalapsky, John Cullen, and a kid from Michigan State named Jeff Parker. But that's the kind of intel you can do if you have a progressive management group, which we had back then. Not a lot of teams were doing that, but Craig was so much better than most of the guys in the league. So you got to do that, and I think that's where Ottawa is right now.
And I'm just thinking of what we've seen under the Staios regime, and I think, we don't have to beat on this guy too much, but Fabian Zetterlund, I think, has been a pretty big miss.
Yep.
But I think Perron's worked out. Amadio's been a really good player for them. Jensen, obviously injured this year, but last year he did a great job at insulating Chabot. So those are the types of moves. Like, I really think about that Chychrun for Jensen trade. And obviously, I don't think the Sens were re-signing Chychrun after a year. So, they can't get as much value as maybe the player's worth now on a big contract. But that was a really good pro scouting move. I think Amadio, I love Amadio. Yeah, obviously, he got another assist last night. I think it's points in 5 straight. But he's been a really, really good player and obviously scoring. But those are the types of moves that go under the radar. We don't talk about, but if you get a guy that can be, Nick Jensen light on the left side for the Sens, and you give up a 4th-round pick, and he can be a serviceable left shot defenseman, you're feeling good about it. Like, you're like, okay, we're okay. We're not. It's no Thomas Chabot, but we're going to be in a decent spot, all things considered, and I think that's what we're going to see, hopefully, from Steve Staios.
I love the fact you brought up Amadio. He's been so steady, so consistent. He's been a physical guy when he has to be. He wins a lot of races, even though he's not super fast. He gets to where he needs to be at the proper time. He made a really slick pass last night, I thought, on the Jensen goal. I thought that was a really good play. So there's a lot to like there, and he's a zero maintenance player. You know, if you did a lot of background checking on a player like that, you say, okay, he's going to be a depth player for us, but is he going to be a pain around the team? Is he going to be a nuisance? He's a zero maintenance player. Just that's the kind of intel as a pro scout you want to try to compile on players, especially guys who are going to play deeper in your lineup. So that's really important. And I think that's a home run as an acquisition. And, you know, part of that, I think, Steve Stalehouse is so intimate with his knowledge of the Ontario Hockey League in particular. So it was easy for him because it's an inside situation for him to go out and make that kind of a move. So I really respect that kind of stuff. It speaks to the professionalism of an organization. And that's something that obviously Steven and his group, and with Dave Poulin, obviously have done a really good job of.
Was Amadio in Brampton, or was it anyways, he was in the O. I remember he had 1 year where he like led the O in goals or something like that, but really good player, and it's become a really serviceable NHLer in his second stop in Ottawa after I think he played 4 or 5 games with them during the 21 season and kind of bounced around and found a place in Vegas. But the other thing, you know, we've been critical of Allmark, and his numbers still haven't been that good, but you know, all things considered, he had a really good performance last night and really got them that point in overtime.
I thought he was really good at key times in the game. The most amazing part was a scramble situation in overtime. I mean, he made some really good, like to keep that thing. Okay, they got a fighting chance to get out of this. And then obviously they couldn't, and Rope Hintz finished the game off. But I thought he was very good last night. I got to give credit where credit's due. I thought Linus was good. He can be better. I think consistency-wise, that's what he needs to do. Everybody doesn't doubt. I don't think anybody doubts his ability to play. It's just his consistency level. That's going to be the key for him long term.
Yeah, and I mean, I was just looking at his charts. Like, he hasn't been giving up a lot of goals of late. It's been 3s, 2s, 3s, a 4 in there, but in overtime. But he's been just a bit steadier, where you don't see the crooked numbers high up, like a 5, a 6, a 7 of late. And
that's such a good job, Alex. I couldn't agree with you more. So I'm gonna just give you a little backing, because I love to back you up because your points are so salient. So the Toronto Maple Leafs have lost 3 games in a row. Okay, to start the month of November, the Leafs have played 5 games. 3 times in those 5 games, they've given up 5 goals. 3 out of 5 games, they've given up 5 goals. Watch some of the goals that go in last night against the Boston Bruins. So I'm just using that because it's an example to back up what you're saying in terms of consistency and numbers and everything else, which Ottawa's doing very well right now. The Toronto Maple Leafs special teams quotient, add the power play percentage and their penalty kill percentage after last night's game, is 94.8. 94.8. If you really want to win the Stanley Cup or compete for it, you've got to be 105 or higher. They're 11 percentage points below where they need to be just to compete for the cup. I'm just telling you how it is. So that is a tried and tested number, and I know you're a numbers guy. That special teams quotient never lies. It never it nails it. There's 2 that nail it. There's all kinds of numbers, but there are 2 you can nail. One is goal differential, and one is special teams quotient. If you go do that and you see numbers that are high, you're going to see good teams. Look at the worst goal differentials in the league. They're all in the West. Calgary, St. Louis. You know what I mean? Go look at them all. It's those numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie.
The only worry is I just Googled it as you were speaking. Ottawa's, I think, at 94.3%, 92%.
Yeah, they're
at the same time, their PK has been steady. They gave up the Robertson goal, but they did pretty well, I thought, all things considered, on the PK. Like, it didn't feel completely dysfunctional.
No.
It's their power play right now. They need a
power
little
play's
bit more.
Got to get better. But the other part too that skews Ottawa's, and this is why I bring it up, what skews it is the start of the year was so bad. So they got to battle out of a big hole. Toronto's been consistently like that the whole year on both power play and penalty kill. Now, I never thought their penalty kill would be bad just because they had guys that are good at that. Like Nicky Roy is good at Nick Roy is good at that, you know, but there are other guys that are there that are good at that. their power play, I thought, would struggle without Marner. And I kept saying in the summer, like, they better find a guy that can quarterback their power play. And they still haven't found that person yet. And now without Austin, Matt, like, this is a big week for Toronto. And I know we're supposed to talk about Ottawa, but I got sidetracked because I wanted to back you up on the numbers,
Again, I don't think Sens fans hate conversations about how bad the Leafs are. So I think we can kind of put it right there and just let it sit and marinate for a little bit. The one thing just on the power play specifically, it was interesting. Giroux went back on the number one unit instead of Greg last night.
Yeah.
And Pinto was off the second unit, which again, I don't love that. I just think he brings a bit of I know why
he's
Green
cool.
does
He's
it.
cooled off. Yeah, got to admit, offensively, he's cooled off a little bit.
He's cooled off, but I still think he's getting a lot of chances. Like that's the one thing that gives me a lot of hope for this team, especially Pinto, and why I would sign him long term. Is he's not finding the back of the net, but he's been snake bitten, right? And you're saying, okay, he's snake bitten. He has 8 goals in 17 games. Like that's basically on pace for 40 goals. I don't think he's getting to 40. But my point being is that he's still generating chances. He could be at 11 goals if everything was finding the back of the net. So I'm really liking, and that line, I'm an analytics guy. They have the 7th best expected goals percentage in the league. And I asked Green about a couple days ago. It's like, what's working with that line? And he literally said, you know me, I like to change up lines. So if I don't, that means something's working.
Yeah.
That line's been really good and created that Jensen goal, as you talked about earlier.
Yeah. The biggest thing I think with Shane is he doesn't need to score to influence the outcome of a game in a positive way. He does a lot of heavy lifting that gets unrecognized. The other night when I was at the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto, I had a chance to talk to Patrice Bergeron for a long time, just the two of us. And I was really impressed by his takes on the game, where the game is going, where it's coming from. And he didn't say it, but I could kind of detect it. And he didn't use Pinto's name, but I always called Pinto Bergeron Light. That's how I always saw him. And I didn't bring it up, but he said there are guys in the league right now who have huge value but don't get big numbers. And I thought that was kind of neat. I never brought up Shane's name, but I would think that would be one of those players that he would be alluding to.
And we're not going to make this all about Shane Pinto propaganda for his agent, Louis Gross, who's meeting with Steve Stamos this week on a contract negotiation.
Louis doesn't need any propaganda.
No. But I will say, and I wrote about this and we've talked about this. In my opinion, Shane Pinto is this team's second most important center. Dylan Cousins has played well in spurts this year. I think if you gave Travis Green a lie detector, it's like, who's the second guy on this team that you trust the most down the middle?
Oh, it's Pinto. I think he trusts Pinto more than Timmy, if you want to know the truth.
Yeah, I still think Timmy's just so gifted that in a sense he has a bit of that higher quotient. I agree. But for sure, Pinto's played that well. He's that good defensively. Right. Even the one time he got burned on the Mac or the Zaka goal in overtime a couple games ago. I'm like, oh, that you never see that happen. Right. No. So he's been unbelievable. And that line, I think what last year was missing, they had Greg on that line with Amadio, Pinto, Greg. I think Giroux just gets a little bit more offense, and that line can now defend at a high level against the top guys who haven't really been putting up big numbers against them, and they can produce. And I think that Swiss Army knife type of third line, in a sense, a second line, with how many minutes they play, is such a great, advantageous position if you're Travis Green.
You know why it's so important, and you've been right on this from the start. How do you overcome the loss of Brady Tkachuk? Consistency in your lineup and guys buying into the role that the coaching staff has created for them. And so if you look at Giroux's accepted his role, clearly Pinto has accepted his role. Amadio's not going to say boo. He's just going to go play. No. So you got one line that can stabilize a game, which is really important when you don't have a guy who's a game breaker like Brady is. Brady's 40 goals. You know it. Every year. It's 35 to 40. You just know it. Put it in. Book it. Now, I don't know if it'll happen this year just because of the injury, but he's still, when he comes back, he's going to make an impact in a positive way because he's going to help Timmy. Timmy's going to be better and Drake's going to be better. It's just, that's the way it is. They're both going to be better. So we'll see I think the biggest thing, though, is they give the coach a security blanket going into every single game, and that helps a lot. It does. It helps a lot.
No, it really does. The one thing I've really liked, and I'm curious what your take on is for a couple of years they've been talking about here in Ottawa. It's like, okay, who plays with Tim Stutz on the top line? Like, who plays with him? To me, it's Drake Batherson. I
Yeah,
just think
100%.
those guys have 30 points combined in the last 12 games playing beside each other.
I know you remember this because you're really good at numbers and you pay attention. We talked about it when Drake was hurt, and we're like, okay, when Drake comes back, he's got to get back, and he's got to get because Kachuk got to get going. Well, outside of the one foible in Montreal where everybody went after him, which happens, by the way, happens to every single player in the league. Watch Lane Hudson last night. Watch what Joel Armia did to Lane Hudson last night. It happens to every player in the league that touches a puck. They're going to have a gaff. Doesn't mean they can have 20 of them, but everybody gets one or two. So he had a bad play in Montreal, but Drake's been phenomenal. I'm so proud of Drake. I'm a big fan. I like him a lot. I knew his father as a player. I watched his sister play at Syracuse University. So, I mean, I know the family, and I really respect the way he is as a man. I respect the way he is as a pro, and I think he's got huge upside. And I love the fact you want him to play and stay with Timmy. Put that line together. Stützle, Batherson, and Kachuk. That's it. That's all. Boom. Go play.
No, I wrote it today. That was my story. Was just Drake Batherson should be the right winger for Tim Stützle, and like moving forward. And he's not a perfect player, but we've been thinking about this for a long time in Ottawa. How do you unlock Tim Stützle's offense? You're seeing that with Drake, and they played well last night. I thought they did a good job. They created a lot of chances, and it was funny. I was talking to Drake yesterday, and he is on these Lapine apartment ads, and I said, "How good of an actor are you?" He's like, "I'm subpar." And I asked if any of the players rip him. He's like, "Yeah, all the time." So I think he's a pretty beloved teammate too, and people really like him. So I think he's a guy that he's not a problem in the room, if that makes sense.
No, my goodness, no.
He's the complete opposite. He's like the most lovable dude. Or there's a lot of likable guys on this team, but he's definitely one of them.
For sure he is. And you know what? Like, he cares. He's proud to be an Ottawa Senator. You want guys that are proud to be part of the Ottawa Senators program, and he's definitely proud to be part of it.
Yeah. So I'm hoping Travis Green, when Kachuk comes back. I also saw Kachuk wasn't wearing his cast last night, so I don't know if that means he's close, but that's an interesting thing because it's around that time of the recovery period for him to start kind of using his thumb and everything. But the other thing I'm just curious from your vantage point is, like, how does this team kind of find ways to not just get wins or get points in regulation, but find ways to win? Because that's been something where it's been a bit harder for them.
I think consistency on the special teams is going to be part of it. I think making sure that they don't spend a lot of time in their own zone, like last night in the third period. And I think there's an excuse for that, obviously, because of the injury to Thomas. But they're going to have to find a way to be more efficient coming out of their own zone. Toronto's going through that too, by the way, where they're spending way too much time in their own zone. And everybody says, oh, when you spend time in your own zone, it's always shots against. No, it's about taking penalties too. The more time you spend in your own zone, the more penalties you take. And if you're a team that's not great at killing penalties, and I know Ottawa's better, but they're still not great at it, or Toronto, they're not great at it either. When you spend a lot, and that's the unseen little dirty pool in the game, too much time defending leads to penalties, leads to power plays, leads to high shot totals, leads to goals against. And then you're digging yourself out of a hole. So I'd like to see them be more efficient in their own zone in terms of moving the puck and defending more quickly. Pittsburgh used to have a rule. It was a really good rule. It's the first time I'd ever heard of it. And it was called the 8-second rule. And from the time the puck entered your zone to the time that you separated them from the puck and got it out, they wanted it to be 8 seconds. They didn't want it to be longer. And so what it would encourage, it worked for some years. It didn't work all the time, but back in 08 and 09, it worked really well. They went to the final 2 years in a row, and they won in 09. It worked really well because it encouraged players to be aggressive, stick on the ice, body position, separate the man from the puck, insulate with support, and then move it out of the zone. But I don't see a lot of teams doing that anymore. And I think it's something that needs to be done because I'm watching all these games. I'm saying they're spending too much time in their own zone. They don't move the puck quick enough out of their own zone. And that's when you get into trouble.
Yeah, and that's the one thing Thomas Chabot, like that's his best quality in a lot of ways, is just getting the puck out of. So I'm a bit worried. The good thing is Spence is probably in many ways just as good at that. I find him in the offensive zone like really dynamic and makes a lot of really good reads. Like I'm it's every game I watch, I'm like, oh, another good play. I like that play. He made a good interception. I think it was in the third period late. I'm excited that we're going to now get it seems like a bit of a longer leash for Jordan Spence, and he's played well outside of one mistake.
Yeah,
really,
which I'm not blaming him for. I told you that. That's a matchup situation. I'm watching Anders Lee the other day. The Islanders are playing, and he gets a goal late in the game, just as we had talked about, because he's always out there to defend the leads. And he basically did the same thing. I think it was against Columbus. He basically did the same thing to one of their defensemen. I'm going, I've seen that movie before. I don't know why more coaches aren't catching on to that. But I will tell you this one. I remember clear as day. When Spence first came into the NHL, his agent was Peter McTavish, and still is Peter McTavish, former Ottawa Senators assistant GM. And I remember calling Peter up, and I'm saying, this kid's good, man. He needs more ice time. This kid's good. And Mac T said to me, Are you sure? I said, I'm telling you, this kid's really good. And Peter and I both think the world of him. I think he's a tremendous player, and he will only continue to get better.
Yeah, he's like the analytics like gurus are just like flock to him. They're like in LA, they say, okay, every time he plays, the LA Kings are a way better team. Play him more, and then the NHL establishment's like, but he's 5'11". It's like, oh, we can't play him. And I do like I get, you know what, to Travis Green, I understand like that Anders Lee goal. Like you can't put him in every situation that you'd like all the time. At the same time, I think it drives winning. So I'm excited to see him get a bit more of a run, and hopefully it leads to some wins. But I think just the biggest takeaway from that game is they had that first period was like the way they want to play, and really the first 37 minutes.
Even I'd say the first 40. I know they're mad at the Rantanen goal. Like, you know, I get it, but I would just say this: like, if they play the way they played through those first two periods last night, forget the third period. I think a byproduct of that third period is because of the Chabot injury, and also Dallas is anxious. You know.
And a really good
Dallas
team.
hadn't won. I didn't know that stat last night going in. Dallas hadn't won against Ottawa the last 6 times they were in Ottawa. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that. Now, I was there for one of those, but I wasn't aware. Like, being on, Brady fought, I think one of the time I was there, Brady fought Jamie Benn. I'm pretty sure.
I could be wrong that maybe Brady Tkachuk's first goal or first home goal was against Dallas. I need to go back in the archives, but he scored against Dallas in his rookie year. I remember that.
But just October. All I know is this is like I remember clear as day, like Dallas always having a hard time with Ottawa. I remember when I was in Ottawa, we went into Dallas and we spanked them really good.
Yep.
So you could see those guys were like they didn't want to lose to Ottawa last night. Yeah. They came ready to play the third period. They were like, no way, man, we're winning this game, and they shut the door. And I was reading some of the comments from some of the players after the game. They all talked about it. Jason Robertson, he said,
"Really?
I've been here for 6 years. I've never beat Ottawa in Ottawa. We're going to beat them." And you know what's cool about it is he gets his first goal in 10 games last night. I know Ottawa fans don't want to hear that, but he goes off last night. He has goal and 2 assists. He had a hell of a game last night. And and a bunch of them said, "We're tired of losing in Ottawa. We've lost 6 straight times." Like I get it.
When in 2027, when that's the Stanley Cup final, I'm going to feel good about it for the Ottawa. When it's Dallas, Ottawa, Stanley Cup finals. I don't know. We'll see. But before I let you go, Pierre, just anything else you kind of want to talk about moving forward into the game against Boston before we wrap up?
Boston's won 7 in a row now. They're really playing. They're not. I know 2 of those were against the Leafs, and the same score, 5-3 in both. Leafs aren't playing great. Boston is playing great. Boston's power play is really going. Pasternak looks great. He's got 401 goals now, which is I can't believe it. I remember when he broke in the league, like it was yesterday. He and Marchand used to do this thing right in front of our studio when I worked for NBC, and I'd be like, "Who is this guy? What a freak show!" But I want to give credit where credit's due. It's a great story. I'm at NBC at the time, and Scotty Bowman calls me up and he says, "Hey, I'm going to tell you right now, I just got back from Sweden. There's a kid I saw over there. I would take him in the first 15 picks. He's really good. His name is David Pasternak." And I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "I'm telling you." And Scotty was still working for Chicago then. Chicago that year did not take David Pasternak. But David Pasternak went a little bit later to the Boston Bruins. And Scotty called me up and he said to me, he goes, "This guy's going to be an unbelievable offensive player." Scotty told me that his draft year. It's unbelievable to think about. And you see where Pasternak is now. How quick he got to 400 goals is amazing to me. It's amazing.
Last year I was honored enough to have a Hart vote. I very much almost put him on my ballot, even though Boston he was so everything told you this. He was one of the top 5 or 6 best players in the league.
Yep.
I think if I'm lucky enough to have a Hart vote, he's probably gonna be somewhere in the top. So
it'll be hard to not take that McKinnon guy in Colorado, though.
Yeah. No. I'm not saying I'm voting him number 1, but I'm just saying overall, he is such a dynamic. I think because he's been on such a good Boston team for so long that he kind of became part of the mold of just another really good Bruin. He is an unbelievable player, so dynamic. But hopefully the Senators can find a way. I'm curious who starts in net. Is Levy Maryland beat him last time?
Ullmark, right, would be starting.
I would think so. The one thing I don't understand is why has Ullmark played 14 of 17 games? I think it's time to give Levy some leash. I thought he played really well in Utah. So hopefully that I'm just worried about your overworking this guy so early.
Yeah, it's fair. The one thing I'd say, just to back your point up and go another step further, Alex, is that they play Boston, they play LA at home, and then they go on that long Western swing.
Yeah.
And so I try to put those points in the bank at home before you head out there. And Boston's obviously a division game, so it matters. But the LA one, that's near the end of their long road trip, so you might be getting a MASH unit coming in there, depending on what happens with their next game in Toronto. But I would just say that, that's really important that they put these points in the bank because that West Coast trip's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough.
If they can beat Boston tomorrow, especially in regulation, you feel really good about where this team is headed, regardless of the result against LA. The one thing I would say, Levy Maryland in the last 2 starts has looked pretty good.
And I agree.
And I wonder if the good thing for the Sens is Ullmark's looking better and Maryland's looking better. And you can see that's why they're picking up points now. So that's a good sign for the Senators. And hopefully they can just have just even league average, just slightly above, and this team will be a playoff team, no doubt. I think.
I don't know who's saying they're not a playoff team. I have them as a playoff team.
Let's just say I have a friendly bet with someone at Sportsnet that he said they won't. I owe them beers if they don't make the playoffs. So
I'll support your bet. How's that?
There you go. We need to get Betway on board or something.
There you go. Betway on board. But they're a good team. Ottawa is, and they'll just keep getting better. I really like the Spence addition to the lineup. I hope Tommy's not out for a long time. And getting the Pinto contract done would be good. It'd be good for him and it'd be good for the organization. So there's a lot.
8 times 8. 8 times 8. I'm telling you.
I don't think that's that hard a concept to grasp, actually. I don't think it is.
The only weird thing is Steos really grinded that first contract with Pinto when he got there. Yeah. And I just wonder, anyways, it'll be interesting to see the term. I think they're gonna find a resolution. Is it a more 3-4 year deal, or is it more of an 8-year deal? I believe in the player, and I don't know what your stance is as someone who was in the league. If you think this guy's good, sign him for as long as you can. and figure out the rest.
Especially if you still have the extra time to get an 8-year deal done. So my biggest thing is, and I think it's really important because it switches over to 7 years after this on collective bargaining. I've never been a fan, and I said this publicly, and I know some people didn't agree with me at the beginning, but then they're like, holy moly, you were right. When Montreal signed PK Subban to a 2-year bridge deal, I was unmerciful saying that's a bad play. It's going to cost you the player long term because he's going to have numbers. You could see he was escalating to the point where he was going to be in the upper echelon and maybe even win a Norris Trophy, and then you're really in trouble. And so it eventually leads to him getting tens of millions of dollars because they signed him to a bridge. They could have lowballed him and got him out of entry level, and it would have been perfect. But they bridged him, and it cost them tens of millions of dollars, and eventually they had to trade the player.
Yeah,
they did.
And if you look at this team, Pierre Dorion had a lot of bad moves, but the moves that he did right was signing Brady for a long-term deal that at the time seemed outrageous.
He had help. And don't worry.
Yeah, my bad. The Sanderson contract, the Stützle contract, all those guys got long-term contracts. I'm not saying Pinto's of that caliber, but it's if you think he is a really important player, sign him as long. And, you talked about the 8-year deal. I wrote this earlier. If you give him 8 times 8 on a 6-year deal in free agency, which is what the new rules will be for other teams, he basically needs to make 10 to make up $10 million a year to make up that money. So use that as leverage to bring down the AAV, give him more money. He's only 20. He just turned 25 today, right? Happy birthday, Shane Pinto. This is your birthday wish. So I forgot about that. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with the Senators. But I think for fans, I'm pretty certain, Steos talked about it this week, just saying, feel like we have good dialogue. We'll see where it goes. So just let's look at what the term is and when that contract gets signed. So hopefully it's soon. But Pierre, thanks so much for taking the time. We'll do this after the Boston game. And thanks so much for coming up.
Look forward to it. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it, Alex. Take care, everybody.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Sens Spotlight on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.